In 2001, Enron Corporation was the 7th largest company in America. It employed 29,000 people. It had been named Fortune magazine's most innovative company for 6 consecutive years. Its stock price had risen 300% in a decade, and it was completely fake. Within 12 months, Enron went from the 7th largest company in America to the largest bankruptcy in American history at that time. 29,000 people lost their jobs. Thousands of employees lost their entire retirement savings. And the men responsible walked away with hundreds of millions before anyone knew what had happened. This is not just a story about corporate fraud. This is the story of how the smartest people in the room convinced the entire world that nothing existed was worth billions of dollars. Stay with me, because what happened at Enron is happening right now in companies you trust every day. To understand Enron, you need to understand the man who built it. Kenneth Lay founded Enron in 1985 by merging 2 natural gas pipeline companies in Houston, Texas. The business was simple: move gas through pipes, charge for it. But Lay had a bigger vision. He wanted to transform Enron from a boring pipeline company into the world's greatest energy trading company. He hired Jeffrey Skilling from McKinsey Consulting in 1990, and Skilling had an idea that would change everything: mark-to-market accounting. Instead of recording profits when money was actually received, Enron would record the estimated future value of contracts the moment they were signed. Sign a 20-year energy contract today and book all 20 years of projected profit immediately, even if the money had not been received, even if the projections were wildly optimistic, even if the contract never delivered. The SEC approved this accounting method for Enron in 1992, and the fraud machine was turned on. Here is how the fraud actually worked. Enron would sign energy contracts and immediately book enormous profits based on optimistic projections. The cash never arrived, but the profits were already on the books. To hide the growing gap between reported profits and actual cash, Enron created hundreds of shell companies. These companies had names like Raptor and Condor and Chuco, and their only purpose was to absorb Enron's losses invisibly. When Enron made a bad investment, it transferred the loss to one of these shell companies. The loss disappeared from Enron's books. The shell company held the debt, and Enron's financial statements looked healthy. The shell companies were technically independent, but they were funded by Enron stock, which meant if Enron's stock fell, the shell companies would collapse. And if the shell companies collapsed, their hidden debts would return to Enron's balance sheet. The entire structure was a time bomb, and everyone at the top knew it. Arthur Andersen, one of the 5 largest accounting firms in the world, was Enron's auditor. They signed off on the financial statements every year. They knew about the shell companies. They knew about the mark-to-market accounting. They approved it anyway, because Enron was paying them $52 million per year in fees. While the fraud was building, the executives at the top were getting extraordinarily rich. Kenneth Lay sold $300 million worth of Enron stock between 1999 and 2001, while telling employees and investors that the company was healthy and the stock was a great buy. Jeffrey Skilling sold $66 million in stock before resigning in August 2001, citing personal reasons. Andrew Fastow, the CFO, who designed the shell company structure, personally made $30 million in fees from the companies he was supposed to be managing on Enron's behalf. Meanwhile, Enron employees were being encouraged to put their retirement savings into Enron stock. Some had 90% of their retirement accounts in company stock. When the collapse came, those employees lost everything. The executives had already cashed out. The collapse began in October 2001, when Enron reported a $618 million quarterly loss and announced a $1.2 billion reduction in shareholder equity. For the first time, the real numbers were becoming visible. The SEC launched an investigation. The shell companies began to unravel. The hidden debts began to surface. Enron stock, which had traded at $90 per share in August 2000, fell to less than $1 by November 2001. In December 2001, Enron filed for bankruptcy. At the time, it was the largest bankruptcy in American history. 29,000 employees lost their jobs in the weeks before Christmas. Thousands lost retirement savings they had spent decades building. Arthur Andersen was convicted of obstruction of justice for shredding Enron documents. The firm collapsed. 85,000 Arthur Andersen employees lost their jobs because of their firm's complicity in the fraud. Kenneth Lay was convicted of fraud and conspiracy in 2006. He died of a heart attack before sentencing. Jeffrey Skilling was sentenced to 24 years in prison, later reduced to 14 years. He was released in 2019. Andrew Fastow served 6 years. Here is what the Enron scandal revealed about the financial system that most people still do not fully understand. The people whose job it was to protect you failed completely. The auditors at Arthur Andersen were supposed to verify that Enron's financial statements were accurate. They were not accurate. Arthur Andersen signed off anyway. The investment banks, including Citigroup and JP Morgan, helped Enron structure transactions that disguised debt as revenue. They knew what they were doing. The credit rating agencies maintained investment-grade ratings on Enron until 4 days before the bankruptcy. 4 days. Their analysts either could not see what was happening or chose not to. Wall Street analysts were issuing buy recommendations on Enron stock throughout 2001, while the company was collapsing. Some of those analysts were privately calling it a disaster in internal emails. Every institution that existed to protect investors failed at exactly the moment it mattered most, because every institution was being paid by the people they were supposed to be watching. Here is what Enron teaches us about money, trust, and the financial system that protects your wealth. Or more accurately, that is supposed to protect your wealth. The most dangerous financial frauds are not committed by obvious criminals. They are committed by respected institutions, by companies that win awards, by executives that appear on magazine covers, by auditors that carry famous names. The warning signs of Enron were visible to anyone who looked carefully. The financial statements were extraordinarily complex. The profits were growing faster than the cash. The accounting methods were unusual. The executives were selling stock while telling employees to buy. These are not obscure technical signals. They are patterns that repeat in every major financial fraud. Revenue growing, but cash not growing. Executives selling while encouraging others to buy. Financial statements too complex to understand. Auditors paid by the company they audit. These patterns appeared in Enron. They appeared in WorldCom. They appeared in Theranos. They appeared in FTX. They will appear again. In a company that looks respectable, that wins awards, that employs thousands of people. The only protection is knowing what to look for before you need to. Subscribe to Financial Protocol on YouTube. Every week we expose the frauds, the collapses, and the warning signs that protect your money. Because the next Enron already exists, and now you know how to spot it. New cases every week.